I'm taking the team total. I'm taking first quarter, first half, full game, taking it all. OU all the way. I lost so much money on OU.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free.
Cast starts all crazy. And they run through our ass like shit through a tin horn, man.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
What is up, and welcome to not another CFB pod. I've got maybe the biggest smile on my face right now because the boys' picks were undefeated from the show. That's always a great way to come into the episode. But this is going to be kind of the conference championship review and then a short little preview on the Super Bowl, kind of where we're at right now. Obviously, still quite a ways away from that Super Bowl. Our big show on the Super Bowl will be next week at some point. So stay tuned on Twitter for that. But it's going to be fun. We're going to try to have some guests. We're going to be talking props, all that good stuff. I'm super excited. I'm jacked. How are we doing, Coda Capper Beast?
Doing great. Vibes are at an all-time high right now. We just had a huge weekend betting. I just had a really good piece of cheesecake before the show. So my vibes are kind of through the roof right now. I got to be honest, boys.
That's a special kind of vibe. Just a little dessert vibe. Just light dessert real quick.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. No, I mean, saying the fact that we went undefeated on our picks in the intro got me like re-fired up again, because it's been a bit like we kind of delayed this podcast the day, so we didn't, normally we talk the next night. It's been a couple nights, and so that I got excited again, like, dude, just the rush of like everything we were calling was happening, and even some stupid ones that like I put in the group chat to take Chris Jones over 2 or more sacks at plus 300 right before kickoff. I don't know if anyone tailed or not, but I threw a little bit on it. Obviously my big play was on him to get 1 sack. What do you know? One of the last plays of the game, he gets another sack, and it was a magical a weekend of football. So I can't wait to talk about it, man.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited because really both games, even though only one of the games was probably a better, watchability, but like we're hitting our bets at least on that Eagles 49ers game. So
right.
I'm excited, man.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about that first one. 49ers Eagles could have been more exciting if maybe a couple key injuries didn't happen during the game, but the Eagles win at 31-7. So they're going back to the Super Bowl. Pretty excited for them just because, I mean, we've been in on the Eagles a lot. Big Jalen Hurts guy. We got to talk about the game, though. We hit our bets on it. We had the under as well. That was great. You had Gainwell rushing over.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. That was easy. Super fun to bet. So, yeah, awesome game from that standpoint. On-field product. While it wasn't close and like back and forth and like the drama we want, I still think it was a high-level football game. You know what I mean? Like, we had that defense for the 49ers. How long were we talking in the group text? Like, dude, they're just keeping this game alive. I remember there for a long time, it was 7-7, and I think maybe it was 14-7 for just a minute. And it was like, okay, it's a 1-score game. And then obviously the Eagles scored right before half. That was huge. I felt like that just kind of solidified everything. But if you look into let's go into the box score, because Jalen Hurts, as much as I love him, he didn't have a great day throwing the ball. Not bad, but just not anything too exceptional. 121 yards passing, no touchdowns. He ran the ball 11 times, so that's a lot for 39 yards, and he did get a touchdown on the ground, which I think we said that on the Twitter Space Live, if I'm not mistaken, that we were going to take Jalen Hurts touchdown. So even some of the Twitter plays were happening, man. It was a lot of fun. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, you're right. It wasn't really Jalen Hurts' best game by any means. Really wasn't even the Eagles' best game, and they still coasted. You know what I mean? 49ers did keep it close. People forget, like, with about 2 minutes left in the first half, that was a 7-7 game. Like I think I guess it would be 14-7 at that point. Really.
Yeah, but we thought it was gonna be a 1-score game at the half. What my brain had already clicked into. And
right, and then they picked up those 2 quick scores, and kind of reminds me in college. Sometimes you'll see that happen where a team picks up 2 quick scores and suddenly it's out of hand. You know what I mean?
The momentum just shifts.
It's a big flip to have. But the big thing that kind of stood out to me of like how the Eagles played was, I mean, Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, and Gainwell all had 11 carries each. Mm-hmm. And Hurts had 39 yards, Sanders had 42 yards, Gainwell had 48 yards. Shout out our guy Gainwell. But each of them were kind of productive on the ground for the most part. Just they were using a lot of different hands in the backfield. Don't know if that's really going to be their strategy in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Wouldn't imagine Gainwell's going to get that many carries, but he kind of came through for us. We were hitting everything we were throwing out there, like even the risky bets like that. I thought that was a risky play. We were still hitting like easily.
Yeah, that was kind of your in the weeds play. And what's even funnier about that is I think I specifically said he's going to have like one run that's over this number. And yeah, sure enough, he had a 17-yard rush that made it pretty easy. And that always feels great. That, and then we had the sack props that went on in the later games. But we do need to mention that this game shifted a lot because Brock Purdy injured his elbow pretty early on. Now, it was a great play by the defense. It wasn't like it's a fluky injury, I guess, but that play, like it was a fumble. And so that was obviously a big turnover for the Eagles. So what I'm getting around to saying, I guess, and we said this a lot in the Twitter space, so I'm kind of drained of it, but even if that injury doesn't happen, I'm pretty confident that we hit our Philadelphia Eagles bets as well on this because I just thought they looked like the better team. Especially, if you just compare the two offenses, both defenses are pretty stout, and we're not even talking about the job Philly's defense did. They were great. Again, makes it a little easier when it's a fourth string quarterback in there, but they were the better team and they deserve the win. I thought that should be added in there.
Oh, 100%. And we didn't even really touch on our other bet that we won on that game was the under.
Yeah.
Which like defensively, you made a good point that like San Fran held that game relatively close for a long time in the first half.
Yep.
And the Eagles defense obviously played as good as we thought they would. So
yeah,
I was glad that one hit, even though the Eagles put up 31 points. Like it still worked out.
Yeah. Usually when one team's scoring that much, you're pretty much done. But again, that injury was huge. And I want to say the only time the 49ers did score was a McCaffrey rush, which a lot of people were giving out McCaffrey props and stuff. That's great. But it was a super long 23-yard touchdown run, I believe. And he broke he broke one tackle, then he juked a guy, then he broke two guys trying to tackle him and got into the end zone. So he beat like half the defense on one play and scored. And that's a great individual effort. Other than that, man, Philly locked it down. I'm feeling pretty good about them moving into the Super Bowl, but a lot can be said about both these teams we're going to talk about today, but it's going to get undersold a little bit how good Philly played in this game because of that injury. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be so focused on, it was just Josh Johnson. Like, how good is Philly really? Man, that takes guts, man, to still step up, in these big moments and hold a team to 7 points. That's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Even with Josh Johnson, I mean, it's still Christian McCaffrey is your running back who pretty much everybody would say McCaffrey's, like a top 3 running back. I get that it kind of got a little bit tricky once they just started consistently running the ball, but it still was a pretty good performance. If they were letting Christian McCaffrey run all over them, then they wouldn't have been able to, do what they did. So they had to still make plays, and they did.
Yeah, they still locked down great players. We're not mentioning George Kittle, who looked like he was going to have a massive day. Didn't end up going too crazy just because of the quarterback issues, but they did a great job against guys like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, just kind of shutting them down. And
yeah,
I want to say too, and I don't really know what you do, but I didn't think that the 49ers play calling was very good, even with Josh Johnson in the game. Now he got knocked out too.
Yeah.
And I guess no pun intended, he got a concussion. So I wasn't trying to make a joke there.
Yeah.
Unfortunate injury. That was kind of a fluky injury. He was kind of hit. I think it was after the throw, but either way, head snapped back and got a concussion. So thankfully, that got taken care of. It's not like he stayed in the game, and like we see way too often these days.
Right.
But overall, a good game, a good result for Philly. It doesn't hurt me that bad to say that. I know a lot of people were giving me a hard time because I was betting on the Eagles, and I've said it a couple times. They got a bunch of OU guys, Lane Johnson too. We're kind of forgetting about him at right tackle over there. OU guy. So I have some other rooting interests. I can kind of get over the Cowboys thing, and the Cowboys pissed me off anyways. So
there you go. It's kind of like revenge.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay for me to do this. It's a little bit therapeutic. It's weird.
Right.
But great game. I think we got to move on and talk about the other one, the AFC Championship game. Very much hyped, going down in Burrowhead. The Cincinnati Bengals grittying their way down south to Kansas City. And man, gutsy performance. That's all I can say, because the Chiefs win at 23-20, so this game would have went under as well. I don't think we had a play on the total there, but Patrick Mahomes we said on the pod that we thought he'd be great, like da da da. He obviously wasn't great, but he still was good enough to where he played pretty much the whole game. He only had like maybe 2 plays where you could tell, like, well, he had several plays where you could tell if he wasn't injured, if he was 100%, this would have gone a little differently. But at the same time, he still made some big time plays. Big story in this one too, though. 3 of his receivers get injured. Everybody basically, but Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Travis Kelce, he had an amazing game. Travis Kelce had a good game as well. They just have so many weapons. We talked about Pacheco. He didn't really get the rushing numbers we thought he might, but that Bengals defense we said was good. I mean, it's funny because we kind of laid out the recipe to an under, but I think both of us were like, with quarterbacks this good, we don't really want to be on an under. Like they're liable to either one could pop off for 40 or whatever, So it was a little scary, but the other bets we did have on this hit. It was a great game. Cincinnati. So there's a lot going to be made about the referee stuff, and we can get into that. But what I said on the post-game pod, and I think I still stand by it today, I don't think the refs are the reason that the Chiefs won. You know what I mean? There wasn't really one. Yeah. I guess people are going to point to the 3rd and 8 thing, the redo. But if you remember, that didn't result in points. The next set of downs, they ended up punting it away. So it didn't end up mattering. I know there was one late against the Bengals that made it 3rd and 17, but they converted that. Like, I just don't think the refs are the reason that the Bengals lost. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people want to kind of just go right to the refs thing, and
it's the easy thing to blame.
It is.
And they did make some mistakes. Like, that's what I'm saying, but it wasn't. I still don't think that the refs were the reason that Kansas City won. I thought they played great, man, and they had nobody at the end, and they were just still making that offense work against the great defense. So.
Yep. Yeah, and as you said, it wasn't Mahomes' best performance, but what's funny is his best performance, like his that wasn't really that great out of Mahomes, was still 326 yards passing and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. I remember one point when he crossed 300, they were like, yeah, and that's his 305th passing yard. And it was like in the 3rd quarter or something. I don't remember exactly, but I was like, holy cow, it doesn't even feel like he's having a very good game, and he's still doing that. Like, it's insane.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just kind of funny, like you said, that he didn't even really play his best ball, and he still was kind of putting up numbers. Joe Burrow, gotta say, was not the same Joe Burrow that everybody says is elite in the playoffs.
Yeah.
If we're saying, well, it wasn't his best game. Yeah, I kind of was expecting a little bit more out of him. I think if you're gonna say, oh, well, the refs lost us the game, this and that, I'm gonna be honest. If Joe Burrow played a better game and, didn't turn the ball over a couple times in that game, like, you might have just squeaked by. It was only a 3-point loss. You know what I mean? So if you want to start pointing fingers, and a lot of people were upset with the guy on the Bengals at the end of the game, that linebacker.
Osai, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, there's a lot of finger pointing going around, but nobody wants to point at Joe Burrow. Like, no disrespect. I like my guy Burrow, but he did turn the ball over a couple times.
Yeah, exactly. No, if you're going to be this big time, like, he's going to overtake Mahomes if he wins this one, then you have to take some of the blame whenever your stat line looks like 26 of 41, 270, 2 interceptions and 1 touchdown. Now, he got sacked 5 times. That didn't help. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, you got to do something. Like, this team is built around Joe Burrow. So if Joe Burrow has a bad game, they're just kind of screwed. My guy Mixon, I mean, they only ran the ball 17 times. It was just a much different game plan, I think, than what they had been going with. Now, Kansas City had a lead for a majority, especially that first half, so they had to throw the ball more, but they just didn't even try to really establish the run. I feel like they just kind of used it as almost like a trick play, and they just put the ball in Joe Burrow's hands, and he didn't have a good game. So that's the result. You lose.
And you make a great point that he got sacked 5 times, and even when they were trying to run the ball with Mixon at times, I mean, you saw the defensive line for the Chiefs getting through. We kind of mentioned 2 weeks ago before that Bills game, are they going to have these issues on the offensive line because they were missing starters? Well, it kind of reared its head this week. You know what I mean? And I do think that Chiefs defensive line was a big part of, all those issues.
Definitely, but it's just funny, and it just kind of tells you how dialed we were, because that's exactly what we said. We talked about the snow and the fact that Buffalo's defensive line just isn't that good, and now you're going against a pretty darn good defensive line. I mean, it was just a clinic on that defensive line. So yeah, maybe that is why they were like, we're not even going to try to run it. I was going to say they still did average 4 yards a rush, which isn't terrible, but a lot of that's Joe Burrow. He had some big scrambles in this one. I mean, yeah, what are you going to do? It was a good game though. At least, we got a really good game out of it, kind of a last second field goal, which was awesome. So, that's as good as it gets for an AFC championship. I don't really blame the refs too much. It wasn't good. It wasn't a good referee effort really in either game, but the refs didn't decide the game. And I remember seeing a tweet from Emmanuel Acho, I think it was, who was basically blaming the refs or saying the refs decided that game. Not so sure, pal. It might be a common Acho L. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, I mean, those are the games. So that leaves us with the Super Bowl matchup. Chiefs, Eagles going down in beautiful, sunny Arizona. That would be a really fun place to be. I know our guy Meerkat, I think, is going to be there, which is freaking sick for him.
Yeah.
Happy for him. But yeah, I'm excited. This is a good Super Bowl, I think. I mean, you look at the spread right now, Philly -1.5, and I wanted to touch on, I think Philly's favored, and it's by the slimmest of margins because we have some question marks on these Chiefs wide receivers. Who's going to be healthy, who's not. I don't know. They were dropping like flies, man. It was like every possession they were losing another one. But can guys like MVS step up again? Great Eagles defense, rather. We know what they can do. Over under 49.5, man. I have a slight lean to the under on this, I feel like, as of right now, but I need to do some research and see how the Super Bowl is played out. This is in a dome. Obviously, weather's not going to be an issue, but it is a natural grass field. But it's about as nice a natural grass as you're going to find because it's high. It has sun all the time. It gets sprinkled plenty. Like they're really good with that because it's Arizona, and all you got to do is add water. You got sun, you see water. So their grass is going to be beautiful, fast turf for it being natural grass. Got a slight lean to the under. I don't know on a side yet, though, man. I think we just got to see more as we go forward this week.
Yeah, of course. I think we're going to have to wait and see, especially with Mahomes even. This was an ankle injury. They said that they were working on all week long to get him good for that game. And he still didn't look 100% in that game. Like his mobility in the pocket was okay. And obviously that play at the end of the game, like we were all like, that was so gutsy because he looked like he was running about 2 miles an hour.
He wasn't going as fast as
he was not.
He was kind of hobbling.
He was not moving very quick, but he made it happen. And I also wonder, he got hit out of bounds in that play. Like, how many times did that ankle get re-aggravated in that game? So you wonder, is he going to be better 2 weeks, kind of rest and maybe taking it somewhat easy? We'll see. But I kind of want to see what those practice updates are for all of those guys. Even for Travis Kelce, who out of nowhere almost didn't play in that game. Like, that was an insane story. They said he had back spasms in a practice late in the week.
They said it was the second to last rep, and he did something. I don't know if he made a cut or what, but his back kind of locked up. Right. And it was like it was a hush-hush deal. Like, it wasn't very public, but there was a decent chance of him not even playing in this game. And he did have a pretty big stat line. And I mean, I think he's now tied for all time for playoff touchdowns by a tight end. Mm-hmm. And I think he's second all time just in receptions now. Like, he passed Julian Edelman for the Patriots, and now he's just behind Jerry Rice, who I don't know if you'll ever catch him, but insane, man, in the playoffs especially, but he's just a freak. We don't talk about the Chiefs enough because they've been so good for so long that we're just like, we don't want to see the Chiefs win, They only have one Super Bowl, though. So can they notch that number 2 Super Bowl? We'll see.
Yep. No, they've made it to, the conference championships and made it to the Super Bowl multiple times. I want to say they said that was Mahomes' 5th conference championship that he played in, which is crazy because he's really, he's only been in the league, maybe 7 years ish?
Yeah.
Something like
he's
that.
not very old.
But so he just dominates. But going to the Eagles too.
He's 27 years old.
So. Yeah, going to the Eagles too. I mean, the fact that they went from, the whole Carson Wentz, Nick Foles thing, got a new quarterback, and now we're back. And it feels like it wasn't that long ago that they had that Super Bowl against, Tom Brady and the Patriots. So I got to give Philly some credit for kind of bouncing back in a few years and doing their thing too. They're as solid as ever. They might be able to do it, man.
That's what I'm saying. I think the defense is better than people are going to give them credit for this week. I think the way they try to build this game is like Mahomes versus Hurts.
Yep.
But really, man, I think this Eagles defense is going way into the radar. Kind of similar to how the Bengals defense was. Like nobody talks about Bengals defense, but it's actually pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Same thing I think for the Eagles. So that's the only thing that gives me pause, because there's a big part of me that just says, yeah, this is when Mahomes starts to establish himself and just say, now I'm sort of the current GOAT. Think Kobe to LeBron type of movement. We'll see if that plays out, because I love Jalen Hurts. Everyone knows that, and he's so composed. Like, I don't think this moment's going to be too big for him, just because it's like his mindset. He's got like the ultimate quarterback mindset. Obviously, a coach's kid down there from South Texas, and he's just dialed. He's just locked in, and he has been since he was at Bama and then OU and now the Eagles. He actually had some pretty interesting words that he said during a press conference, that basically the guys that drafted him there, like then he got new coaches and stuff, and they were like, I don't even know if we want this guy. And then he basically had to prove himself again to this new coaching staff, and they luckily had a vision for him, and it's played out great. So I'm actually pretty stoked about this Super Bowl, man.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. And we mentioned on the show last week that we're like, whoever we get in this matchup in the Super Bowl, it's going to be like a 1 to 2 point spread. That's the kind of stuff you love to see. Yeah. There was that Super Bowl with Patriots and the Rams where it was like a super low scoring game. And we saw one of those spreads in that game where Patriots were huge favorites, if I remember correctly, and they covered it just because the Rams couldn't do anything in that game. I don't think that's going to be the case in this game. I don't think we see a blowout. I think we see a really close game, which is what I want to see in the Super Bowl, obviously.
Yeah, man, it's going to be fun. I don't know what our plans are just yet, because, again, we're a little ways away. We're going to have another show that will come out sometime later next week, and that'll be your big preview. We're going to talk all the props, all the bets, and we're going to try to have some people on here with us like we did last year. It was a lot of fun. I remember Beast hopped in. I think Squilly was in. And maybe even Meerkat, if I remember right. So it was a really good group. I don't know if Meerkat will be able to do it just because he may be in Arizona. Or maybe he can do it from his hotel room. Yeah, he's going to be on Media Row. So awesome. Love to see the people winning. Okay, so that's the next podcast. Do you have any way to wrap us up here?
No, hopefully people are going to be locked in for that show next week, because it's going to be a big one. So just hold off this week. I know it's just one show, but it'll be a lot of gas next week, I promise.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Peace.
Peace out.